Welcome. This is the Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing podcast. This is where you'll learn strategies to help you achieve lifetime financial freedom through real estate investment. Your host, Rod Khleif, has owned over 2,000 homes and apartments, and he brings experts in all aspects of real estate investment and management onto the show. Now, here's your host, Rod Khleif.
Welcome to the Lifetime Cash Flow podcast. I'm Rod Khleif, and I am thrilled you're here. We have two hitters in the space, and one of them is a friend of mine. Their names are Jack Bosch and Corey Peterson, and they are with Kahuna Property Partners. I guess that's Hawaiian, Kahuna. That's Hawaiian, right, guys?
Yeah.
Well, welcome aboard, guys. And they're both hitters in the real estate space and very, very impressive bios. And I think what I'm going to do is really have them introduce themselves because they both come from different backgrounds. Now, Jack, I will say, Jack immigrated from Germany. I immigrated from Holland. And so we've got some parallels there. And Jack and Corey have partnered on some multifamily. So we're going to dig into all that. So, Corey, you want to start and just tell my listeners how you got started in the business and tell us who you are.
Yeah. So, I started in 2005, read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, book changed my life and said, that's what I want to do. I want time and money. And I went to work and figured some things out. And what I found that I got really good at it was raising private money. I was raising private money for my single family deals. And then something changed in 2011 and I'm in the Phoenix market. And it was harder and harder for me to source good deals. And I always really wanted to do apartments. And so I took the time to get really good at it and had some really good mentors that showed me the way. And I raised my first deal in 2011, $3.2 million purchase. And we raised $1.4 million of private money. And we've been off to the races since. And what a wonderful process.
Awesome. Okay, Jack, tell us about you.
All right, wonderful. Well, I have a little bit of a different background. As you mentioned, I'm from Germany originally. I came over to the United States in 1997, got the job, worked hard, didn't really like my job, and then just very similar, actually, read Rich Dad Poor Dad, started liking real estate, started liking needing to do something. But I started then buying and selling land. So I flipped over 3,800 pieces of land since 2002. I've done a whole bunch of real estate since then, but I've never basically flipped land and even sell land with seller financing, and that's kind of fun, and I still do that. But over time, I realized the importance of true passive lifelong income, like passive cash flow that lasts for a lifetime. So 2009, we started buying some houses, but that's kind of a little slow. Single families, like you buy one, you buy another one, you buy another one, and it's the slow process. It does provide cash flow, and I have a few dozen of those now, but it provides, in a sense, slow cash flow. So then at some point of time, I said, man, I got to figure out that multifamily kind of game, because that's the next step up, right? That's the next step up. I know how to flip land for income. I know how to have for houses for cash flow, but in order to get more cash flow and build more wealth and so on for us and our investors, I needed to do this thing. And even though I have a lot of real estate experience, this multifamily game is a little bit different. So I did what I always do is I look for the best person that I can find that I already know, ideally, that can help me. And I basically see if I can partner up or learn from the person. So Corey and I know each other for several years already. We're part of a couple of masterminds together. So I went to Corey and said, hey, Corey, you're the big kahuna, right? That's how they call him. You know the real estate, apartment complexes really well. Can you show me? And then he's like, well, why don't? And he said, he just had a deal come up, and he's like, why don't we partner up on that deal and you learn the ropes of it? Because real estate is real estate, but apartment complex just has, the operations are different. The acquisition is a little different. There's a few things that are different that I just, even though after 3,800 deals, was not yet fully familiar with. So I teamed up with somebody that's an expert in the space, and we've done one deal very successfully, and we literally this week signed the documents for another deal.
Let's talk about that first deal, Corey, or whatever deal you want to talk about. I'd like to dissect one of your deals. I know you just did one or two with Jack. Pick one of those and let's dig into it.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So we just actually did, we bought a deal in New Orleans, in Slidell, Louisiana, about 30 minutes outside of New Orleans. And we bought it for, 3.6, Jack, right?
Yes, $3.6 million
Yeah.
plus $400,000 in capex.
Yeah, and it actually was a really unique deal in that the day we've bought it, we have been cash flowing like amazingly great. And in fact, we started off. I think our NOI was what $26,000 the first month in operations. 6 months down the road, we're now at $46,000 in NOI.
So why was it so low when you bought? What was the value add there? What did you encounter? And then what did you do to turn that around?
So believe it or not, it was more an operational play. I mean, we've not even done any really rehab to the property yet, like major. We're budgeting to replace the entire roofs and paint all the outside. But all we really, really did, it was already 90% or 93% occupied when we bought it. And payroll was super high, and there's super high expenses. And as I think the people that were owning it were just not seasoned operators. They were overpaying for a lot of things. And we just came in there, replaced a couple staff that we didn't need, and just really trimmed all the fat. And by trimming the fat, and then now we're at 100%. And that's typical at a lot of our properties. We run a very high expectation of filling every unit.
So it was just reducing expenses. It wasn't raising rents.
Not yet.
Yeah,
Okay.
we've been raising rents we are raising rents. So on our new units, we've not even approved the units yet. We're still getting a $60 bump in rents for new rentals, and then we're on all our renewals. We're still getting a $15 renewal increase.
Wow.
So slow and steady wins the race.
So when you analyze this property, you identified the fact that they were running at a high expense ratio, I assume.
Yeah.
Okay. That's something I really want to flag for you guys that are listening to this or watching this, in that a lot of times people will overlook deals and not really drill into the numbers. And see, a lot of people wouldn't have noticed that. They wouldn't have noticed a high expense ratio. So my hat's off to you guys, because there are diamonds in the rough out there that show a low cap rate, but they might be running at a 60% expense ratio. And there's just such a huge opportunity there that's there kind of in plain sight, but people don't drill down to see it. Would you agree?
That's exactly what happened. It's actually
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we bought it at a 7 cap, and we're even modeling, like when we forecast, we're modeling selling it at a 7.5 cap.
Right.
And so even worse, right? But we think it'll be better. But if we're going to model, let's model conservative.
Sure.
And we're still cash flowing really good.
No,
so Rod, if I can add something here to that, what I learned, what I understand from this process is what has really been drilled into me, and which I really appreciate, is that multifamily lives and dies by the operational efficiency, by how well you run the property.
right.
So when people buy properties, if they just mismanage it just by a little bit, and you can come in and you manage that part better, then you can make a ton of difference in there. So we didn't raise rents right away. Only on the new units we're raising rents, but instead our property management company that we aligned with came in, and they turned everything into electronic file keeping and electronic measurements, and they got the economic occupancy of the property up. The property was 91% occupied, but had a bunch of people that paid late. Well, by getting rid of that or didn't pay, and a bunch of evictions that they hadn't really done and so on, by us coming in and by changing that, we got the money that was supposed to be coming in. We got that to come in, and then the next step is to get better tenants in there and show them that we care. And overall, and now the repairs are coming. So it's like a staggered approach, but
Sure.
It all comes down to running the property really, really efficiently and well. So these guys, they were making money on this property. They weren't losing money on it, but
Right.
they were just not running it well. The expense ratio were well above 60%, and we dropped that right away down. And I think that's just the key thing for everyone listening to keep in mind, that if you don't have a real operational excellence or somebody that's run this place, a good property management company at your hand, then this can be dangerous. But if you
Sure.
you can take deals like that and bring them out to the roof. It's amazing.
Okay. Yeah, so it was actually running over 60%. And guys, anytime you see over 50%, there could be an opportunity. There likely is, because 50 is about an average.
Yeah.
And so that's awesome. And I'm really glad you brought up economic vacancy. That's come up many times in the past. So guys, you may get a rent roll that shows $30,000 a month on the rent roll, but they may only be collecting $20,000 a month. So very, very important that you pay attention to economic vacancy and economic occupancy based on the trailing 12 profit and loss statements. You see what they're actually depositing. Yeah. So what kind of debt did you put on it?
We actually were able just to get a Freddie loan. Now, one of the things we've been doing lately, and it makes a lot of sense, is that we went and got a 7-year fixed Freddie loan at 80% LTV.
Okay.
So that was really nice. And then it has a prepayment schedule of, we call it 5-4-3-2-1-1.
Yeah, the defeasance.
Right?
So you got a non-recourse debt.
Non-recourse.
Yeah.
And then it actually turns into an adjustable, and after that for another 13 years.
Nice.
Now, there's a reason why we did this, though, is because we are syndicating. We raise capital, and there is a change coming. We don't know when,
right.
But and so we got to be very prepared that. And for our investors too, this is a safety play for us. It doesn't cost much to do this, but it allows us to have a note where we know it's not going to get called. Right.
Anybody that's putting 5-year debt on a property right now is I mean,
ludicrous.
They're playing Russian roulette. Guys, just so you understand why that's a big deal is you could be cash flowing great. I mean, this property could be cash flowing great, but if the cap rates have expanded because the market has gotten bad, it could likely be worth significantly less than it is now. So you wouldn't be able to refinance. So if you've got to if you have to refinance because you've got a 5-year balloon, there's nothing worse than having a cash flowing asset that makes sense, but because cap rates have gone up, so the values have gone down, and you don't have the loan to value that you need to refinance, and you're going to give that property back to the bank. And that's why what Corey's talking about is you have to do that. I wouldn't do anything less than 7 years, but what you did is even better, where you just go to an adjustable. And yeah, you got to pay a little bit for that, but it's worth every penny of that right now.
In gold.
Right.
Yes.
Absolutely, yeah. It's our insurance policy, basically, for us, for our investors. And I know you, but yeah, it's really our insurance policy to make sure that our investors' money is safe. It's an insurance policy to make sure that the property is safe. Because the worst case scenario, we just keep the property. If the market crashes, we just keep paying everyone their dividends and their preferred returns. And then when the market recovers, we can sell. But as you exactly said, Rod, we'll never have to sell this property just because we're at that Russian roulette 5-year mark.
Right. And that's how a lot of people get hurt. And I cringe when I see developments coming out of the ground right now because they're playing Russian roulette as well. I mean, there's no question we're headed into a contraction, but that doesn't mean there aren't great opportunities that you can make money with out there, because there are, as long as you're focused on cash flow. I just got an email this morning from somebody who said, hey, this property sold for X back in 2008, and I can get it for Y today. And I said, I don't care. What's the cash flow? What's the NOI? What's your new debt service coverage ratio going to be? That's all that matters. In fact, I'll put a plug in for my book. And I know, by the way, I want to put a plug in for your book as well. But my book, How to Create Lifetime Cash Flow Through Multifamily Properties, the subtitle is The New Rules of Real Estate Investing. Basically, the new rule is focus on cash flow, not value. And Corey, I know you've got a book coming out, and it's titled Why the Rich Get Richer, The Secret to Cash Flowing Apartments. And I know you've also got a podcast coming out. And what's that called, Corey?
The podcast is going to be Multifamily Apartments Investing Podcast.
Awesome. Yeah, so, and guys, if you want to contact Corey or Jack, their website is kahunapropertypartners.com, KAHUNA propertypartners.com. So let's move on to another segment of the show. This is a question that I like to ask sometimes about a war story and a victory story. So you could start with the victory first, but then tell me about a war story too.
The victory story for me really is the one that also drove me towards multifamily investing, because the victory story is that thanks to the land flipping deals that I've done, where we also sell properties with seller financing and then people pay us basically with great cash flow from land, in 2008 and 9, we were in a lucky position that we actually, our business did not crash. We didn't lose a whole lot. I mean, values of what we held on to went down, but other than that, we didn't lose a whole lot. And we actually saw real estate, America, be for sale. And we were able to jump in and buy a whole bunch of single-family houses during that time that now have tripled and quadrupled in value. And I still hold most of those. So they provide nice cash flow, but they also have made a big equity gain on there, like a 7-figure equity gain. And really in that moment is when I realized, like, man, I gotta think bigger than just doing 33,000 something land deals is pretty big, but I realized now I gotta play this again. And as we're looking right now in the economy, and the economy is like heating up and real estate is heating up, both Corey and I think that there might be an adjustment coming at some point of time. And one of the things I want to do, my biggest regret is that I didn't buy more single families back then, or that I didn't already get into multifamily back in 2009 or 10 and so on. Because obviously the leverage is so much bigger. If you a property that's worth $4 million can be worth 8 or 9 over a 5-year period if you do it right.
If you buy at the right time. Mm-hmm.
If you buy at the right time. So what we're doing right now is we're looking very, very carefully. So my success story is I did see that. I jumped in. I was able to buy something like 17 houses or so back then, and then let them ride up, and they're worth several $1 million more than they're right now.
There will be incredible opportunities when this market contracts, no question, and exponential opportunities for appreciation, no question. And contrarian investing is basically selling now, okay, getting into cash right now. And then when the market crashes, when there's, for lack of a better word, blood running in the streets and everybody's running for the hills saying real estate is terrible, that's when you buy. And that's now, I got caught in that crush back in 2008, and I was the blood. That was my blood running down the street. But I will say, and those of you listening, don't be discouraged, because there are deals out there. I mean, we're writing an offer tonight, and we're going to have a 50% cash-on-cash return on this deal. And so there are deals out there. You just have to find off-market deals, or you have to have relationships with brokers. But don't get discouraged, because there's lots of deals happening. It's just but with both eyes wide open. That's the key.
Yes. Rod, let me give you a quick example. So for me, my first deal, I bought it in 2011. I bought it for $3.2 million. It's now 5 years later. So our average strategy is to hold them at least 5 years, right? Mm-hmm. Increase occupancy operation wise. I have it under contract now for $8.8 million.
Wow.
So that's a $5 million. I mean, I'm making $1 million a year. Now, I never banked on that. That's just what happened, right? Because I bank on the cash flow.
Right.
Like, just like you. I mean,
the appreciation is a bonus. I mean, that's a quote from my book. By the way, I forgot to plug when I plugged my book. Forgive me for this, guys. This is shameless promotion. Guys, if you're watching this and you want it, it's free. You just text ROD ROD to 41411, and my book's free. But anyway, you're right, because if you look at the appreciation as a bonus, if you look at the tax benefits as a bonus, if you look at the principal reduction as a bonus, that's what it is. It's but focus on the cash flow. And I mean, that deal, that's an amazing deal, a $5 million spread. Now when did you buy that one? Like 09 or 10 or 11?
11, yeah.
11, yeah. I mean, that's
August
fantastic timing. And that timing is going to happen again. That kind of a appreciation play is going to happen again. So,
that's exactly what we're doing right now. Actually, we're preparing right now, doing very, very careful, sifting through hundreds of deals to find one.
Right.
Doing that deal that's a safe deal but building the relationships with the brokers and all stuff to be able to then, when that happens, be able to go big.
I was just going to expand on that to say that, guys. Those of you listening, use this as an opportunity. Right? I mean, use this as an opportunity to grow your network, to find investors, to develop those relationships, to develop the relationships with brokers, bankers, mortgage brokers, all of that. And we're doing the same thing. And we're simpatico in that, because when the market crashes, if you've got investors and partners and access to capital, there'll be exponential opportunities.
Yeah.
All right, so tell us about the war story. I want to hear when your blood was running down the street now.
My biggest war story it's the same deal that I made all the money on. I get ready to make all the money on. Is when I first came into that deal, It wasn't my deal. Actually, I was represented the capital. I had lots of private money to come into the deal. So this is where I will say, know thy operating agreement and know thy partner. And now Jack and I, we know each other very well, but these two guys that I first went into business with, I didn't know, and I didn't read thoroughly. And I was, I was a little bit naive. I'm gonna say it hurts to tell this story. Okay?
And that means it's a real one. That means it's a good one. All right.
So I negotiated a 75% ownership of this deal when I first started, and somehow, and I was supposed to have 75% voting rights. Because it was all my capital coming into the deal.
Sure.
And they were getting ready to lose it. They were getting ready to lose their earnest money. They needed to close in like 2 weeks. So I was able to make that happen. But somehow in between lawyers, and my lawyer missed it too, is that on the voting rights, it ended up being 33, 33, 33.
Ah.
And all of a sudden it was 2 against 1 because I was the outside guy.
Right.
And it about made my heart sink. And it was the hardest thing to do because the operating agreement wasn't written very well. It wasn't my operating agreement. It was these other guys. And so what I learned from that is know thy operating agreement. Hire good legal counsel to prepare one for yourself and for your team, right?
Yes,
and
absolutely
make sure
critical.
There's language in there that spells out what happens if there's ever a split up or how people get bought out or things like that. Very, very important.
Critical, yeah, and you really need a good attorney to do that. And I've seen attorneys that just boilerplate somebody else's agreement and they're junk. And I've seen attorneys that literally almost painfully go through every detail, and that's what you want. You want to go through that pain for somebody like me.
Go through the pain now.
Yeah, because you don't want that other pain. A little bit of impatience and pain now is worth it. Trust me. So let me ask you guys this: and you guys, I know Jack, and Jack, I want to put in a plug for your land program because Jack, by the way, guys, Jack is an expert in land flipping. Obviously, he's done over 3,000 deals, and he teaches that. But in your experience, what advice would you give someone that wants to get into this business? I mean, you're talking about hundreds of units, and that's going to intimidate some of my listeners. What advice would you give somebody that hasn't bought a unit yet?
Well, perhaps I can start that because I'm fresher in that game. Find a mentor, find somebody that has done the game before, because it is like the beauty of land flipping is super simple, right? You got a buyer, you got a piece of land, you got a seller, you got a buyer, and you go flip it. Seems simpler than house flipping, but the apartment complexes is multifamily. It's a different game. You got sophisticated sellers, you got attorneys involved, you got PPMs involved, you got there's a sequence of things need to happen and so on. So find somebody that can help you understand how this works, enroll in a training program, or find somebody that's already done a deal. Put some sweat equity in there for do some of the work, or if you have capital, put some of the capital in, but partner with somebody up that you know well, that you can trust, and that's kind of my thing in that, because it is a much more complex animal than many other kinds of real estate, from both acquisition as well as running it.
Sure.
A lot of people, and that was my point earlier, a lot of people think it's all done just running it and handing it off to a property manager. No, that's where we buy our deals, because somebody bought it, ran it, and then didn't run it as well as it should have been run, which then gives us the opportunity to buy it again at a lower price and bring it up. So
sure.
That's really the key. There's pieces and through the puzzle on multiple ends that you wanna make sure you get really, really good advice at the beginning. So get a course, team up with somebody that can show you how to do this.
No, that's good advice. That's good advice. So I do these little 5 to 8 minute driving force success tips on my podcast. And sometimes I'll ask people what makes them jump out of bed in the morning. Where do they get their drive? I'd love each of you to answer that question. I mean, what drives you? What motivates you?
Man, for me personally, I love it. I love the game of real estate. I don't know. It's like, besides my wife, it's my second love. And so I love the process of getting a deal. I barely made it out of high school. I'm a used car salesman. I sold cars for 6-7 years. The chasing of the deal, the working out of stuff. I really get a lot of fun, enjoyment out of that. And it's why I come up to work. I like the chase.
Oh,
as we get done with the deal, right, and we're kind of done buying it, and my operations works, because that's kind of like an autopilot for me.
Right.
It's not so fun. Now, I like looking at it and going to visit it,
right,
but it's not as fun anymore.
No, that's a great answer. And Jack, before you answer, I want to hammer that home for my listeners. Guys, make sure you associate pleasure with this business if you're going to get into it. Don't do it unless you love it. And if you don't love it right now, make it so you do love it. I use the analogy hunting for treasure, because that's really what Corey's describing here. It's the thrill of the chase. And life is too short not to do what you love. So be sure you're doing what you love. And again, you can develop a love for this by how you position it in your mind and associate pleasure to it. Great answer. How about you, Jack?
Well, for me, it's if I always distinguish between two kinds of goals, and I distinguish between what I call means goals and end goals. Most people work; their job is a means goal. It's a means to an end, right? When you go to work, you make money so you can enjoy the weekend or whatever people do, right? Real estate, to me, particularly multifamily, as well as other real estate, cash flow real estate. Let's put it that way: cash flow real estate is an end goal in itself. Right. Because it builds wealth, it builds cash flow, and it's a ton of fun to do for me too. I love looking at deals. I love the creativity of making a deal happen and how you can structure it to make it happen and so on. But it hits these 3 points. It creates wealth, it creates cash flow, and it's fun to do. So if I can work in something that I have fun, that I build cash flow for my family, passive cash flow ideally, and that also on top of it, through appreciation, build wealth, hey, I'm in paradise.
That's a home run. That is a home run. Any way you shake it. Any way you shake it. Yeah. So let me ask you guys this. What books have you gifted the most to either students or friends? What books that you enjoy have you gifted?
I've gifted The Go-Giver.
The Go-Giver. Okay.
I think it was The Go-Giver. It's a little red book. I believe it's called Go-Giver. I've gifted that like 25 times or so. Obviously, Rich Dad Poor Dad. Everyone in our company reads that book. I'm reading a great book about leadership right now that's actually called, I haven't gifted it, but I'm really loving it. It's called Turning the Ship Around by David Marquet is the name.
Okay.
Turn the ship around. It's a great leadership about leaders to leaders versus leaders followers, leaders to leaders. I mean, that's a concept I use in our company a lot that allows us to go travel around the world all the time while our team runs the ship, because they're leaders. They're not followers of mine. And so it's a great book that helps see how operational companies work a little different.
No, thank you. I'm going to check that out. I appreciate that. This is more for me than my listeners. No, I'm kidding. It's as much from my listeners, but I get some great books from that question.
How about you, Khleif?
Yeah.
For me, Richest Man in Babylon is always one of my favorites.
Oh, yeah.
I just love 10% of what I make is mine to keep. I feel like we don't save enough as a country. And, I think, and honestly, quite honestly, the Bible, I gift the Bible a lot.
Awesome.
That's just a different level. But yeah, I mean, books like that, I mean, if you're not, readers are leaders. We all know this. We hear this. And so you got to be feeding your mind. And, I've always said I'm a student and then I'm a teacher as well, right? I teach what I know. And then I'm always a student. To this day, I still buy courses. I still educate myself continuously because it's enjoyable for me to do that. I like to learn new stuff, but also I just know that it's something I got to do. I mean, I have to keep learning.
Listen, learners are earners, and I mean, Jack and I met through this very high dollar mastermind that he and I are both part of. So paying tens of thousands of dollars a year to be in this mastermind, and I'm in several of them that I pay $25,000 a year a piece for, and you're right, they're very valuable. Well, listen, guys, I really appreciate you being on the show. You've added a ton of value, and I those of you who want to reach these guys, again, KahunaPropertyPartners.com. That's it. That's how you can get a hold of them, and thank you so much for being on the show, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Okay.
Hey, thank you so much, Rod.
All right.
Thank you for listening to the Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, please subscribe And then take a moment to visit iTunes and leave a 5-star rating and review. For more resources to connect with us further, please visit our website at lifetimecashflowpodcast.com. Tune in next week for our next show.